Mark Carney just won the election and Canada is already heading for a recession. All right, let's talk about this. Canadians should be prepared for really soft economic activity over the next 6 to 8 months. For those who don't know, a recession is defined as 2 back-to-back quarters of negative GDP growth. So even if it's negative 0.1%, 2 quarters back-to-back, that's a recession. And one thing that we need to understand about recessions is that even if we have a technical recession, that doesn't inherently mean that it's going to be bad for the individual. But also, when we don't have recessions, it could still be bad for the individual. As the cost of living crisis has continued to spiral out of control in Canada, we haven't had any recessions that caused that. And the projected recession is pegged at negative 0.9 and negative 1.1%, which isn't great, but it's also not the worst thing. The reason I'm saying that is because the recession is almost entirely being caused by Donald Trump and his tariffs, something that we're actually going to see a global impact on. Like, remember during COVID when there was global inflation and people tried to blame Trudeau and the Liberals for the global inflation problem, even though that Canada experienced less inflation on average than almost all of our peers, especially other G20 nations? Like, Canada performed better in terms of beating inflation than almost every other country that we normally compare ourselves to. Similarly, here, most other countries around the world are going to experience negative GDP growth. This is going to be a thing that occurs everywhere. There's going to be recessions in many countries. Difference is, Canada, bordering with the US, at least in Europe, they can trade with other European countries. We don't really have much of a choice. Our economy is extremely tied to the US, and the tariffs that are going to be placed on us are going to have a massive, massive ramifications. But don't worry, we're in good company because JP Morgan has actually increased the probability of a recession in the US from 40% now up to 60%, with growth in the most recent quarter in the US actually being negative 0.3%. What is almost more concerning than a recession would be stagflation, stagnating wages and inflation at the same time. And one of the harms that we're going to be facing with this potential upcoming recession is that people's wages aren't going up, and wages really haven't been increasing competitively, especially compared to inflation, since the 1980s. Canada and many other Western nations took a really hard neoliberal turn in the 1980s because of a guy named Ronald Reagan. I don't know if you've heard of him. And even though some liberal governments have not been as neoliberal as other conservative governments have been, the liberals are still, by and large, neoliberal. And if you don't know what that means, it essentially means adhering to more market ideas. Not inherently trickle-down economics, but things that are trickle-down adjacent. Now, if you were to read Mark Carney's books, and if you were to listen to him speak before he became prime minister, a lot of the things that he talked about were not actually as neoliberal as some of the things that were suggested during the campaign. So you have to wonder, will this central banker, will this economist who understands how things work, when he is leading, when he is making decisions, will he stick to the things that he mentioned in the campaign that are a little more neoliberal, or will he take a bit more of a progressive Keynesian approach? Will he try to do things in a way that will allow for wages to increase, that will allow for the average person to prosper more, or will he double down on neoliberal economics and create a system by which the rich are making more money and businesses are extracting more wealth from the average individual? At the end of the day, I'm not advocating that Mark Carney takes a socialist turn. I'm just saying that there are decisions that could be made that could impact and benefit the average Canadian more than a business. And for the last 30, 40 years, we have been making decisions that tend to benefit businesses more than individuals. I, for one, am hoping for something different. So if you want that, we should be pushing the Liberal government to be enacting those types of policies. Part of that is being informed. If you want to learn more about economics, follow me, leave some comments down below. I will answer them. I am an IB economics teacher. I'm not an expert, but economics is something that I understand. And if the more informed that we are, the more that we can push this government to make the right choices. So hit the like and follow button if you want to join me on this journey, and leave some comments down below.